Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Cedric Unplugged Leadership Insights. This is the space where we don't just talk about titles, we talk about transformation. We don't just highlight success, we examine the sacrifice behind it. Because leadership, real leadership, isn't proven when it's convenient, it's revealed when it costs you something. Today's conversation is about courage, about a woman who made a decision that many people dream about, but few have the nerves to execute. She left what was familiar, she left what was comfortable, she even left what was closest to her heart to pursue a future she believed would change her family's trajectory. From RN to nurse practitioner, from New Orleans to New York City, from survival to success. But this isn't just about a career story, right? It's a leadership story because sometimes leadership means betting on yourself before the evidence shows up. And sometimes growth requires distance, discipline, and delayed gratification. Today, we're talking about what it means to lead when the decision is heavy, when the sacrifice is personal, and when quitting would have been easier. So, welcome, Dr. Dalia Young, to Cedric Unplugged.
Hi, thanks for having me, Cedric.
Well, hello, and welcome to the show. I'm excited about this conversation. I know that the audience is going to get a lot from your story, your journey, the sacrifices that you made, why you made them, and how you made them. So I'm really excited about today's show. So thank you for taking the time to come and talk with us today.
Of course.
So let's just get into it now. You're in New York City, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. Awesome. The Big Apple is what they call it. Okay. So before we get into your credentials, who was Dalia becoming?
Before the credentials, I mean, I guess I felt like in life we have so many different phases. I got married pretty early and had my daughter like I was 20. And so I was the mom, the young, wife. And then, I was divorced like, maybe 5 to 7 years later. So I had to like, deal with or become that person, the single mom, and, raise Gabby and like figure out who was I in that season. So I think that in each, like each season, like called me to like, adjust. And I think that that's the, like that's the biggest word because, like, everything wasn't linear. I had a lot of changes. And so I just had to adjust with those changes. And the mom, single mom, me and Gabby, I feel like that was the biggest call to change. Um, I mean, I love my daughter to death, but that was, I mean, that was my biggest job. And it
Mhm.
wasn't easy. And I put a lot into it. I changed jobs. I, did a lot of sacrifice. I'm sure a lot of moms can, you know, they can relate. But yeah, so being the nurse and the mom and, being at the track meets and things like that. So that season to me was, okay, I'm doing all of this, but it's like, what else do you want after that? And so that's when I was like, I need to, actually go back to school and, things like that. But I always tell people if the biggest leadership role is being a parent.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. It is. So when did you realize nursing was more than just a job?
Oh, yeah. So nursing is not easy. There's a lot of, like, there's a lot of like ins and outs that isn't so pretty.
Mhm.
Uh, that I feel like you have to just be, you need to be like a humble person and like a actually caring person. Um, and so I think that there were times when, because oddly enough, I was like, oh, I don't really want to do oncology. It was the craziest thing. It was the first thing I said. But I kind of fell into it. And I feel like some of the oncology patients are like some of the most reward. I mean, they're humble and they're like very like just appreciative of having someone there to like advocate for them and things like that. And you're like, you think you have problems, but actually you're with people at some of the most delicate times in their lives. And so in that, in that you want to advocate for them. So there's been times when I was like, okay, this is my job, but something clicked when I was told like, because I did sometimes I would not only just work my real job, I would, work PRN jobs as a single mom at different hospitals and institutions. And of course, they would have different, rules and protocols. And I can remember like, I knew something wasn't right, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. It's called like, your nursing, sixth sense or whatever. But, I was getting so much pushback from the institution, like, like the nursing staff, and they're like, oh, we can't call this doctor on the weekend and this and that. And I was like, no problem. I'll call them. And because it had been like hours, and that's the thing, we're privileged to have this one-on-one time with another human. The
Yeah.
doctors only come in for a second. And if you're having this constant contact, you actually have the most like insight of what's going on, not the rules, not whatever. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna call him. Took the phone, called him, and he was like, oh my God, he didn't even know. That's the thing. Like, so when there's so many systems involved, sometimes communication is broken. We all know that. Like, it doesn't get relayed to everybody in the system. He had no idea that that rule was in place. And he immediately came back to the hospital, and within 30 minutes, that patient went to surgery.
Oh,
But
wow.
if I would have allowed systems and barriers, to say, hey, this is what you don't do, you got to follow, and but I feel like as a person, like, as a nurse, as a healthcare provider, your biggest job is advocacy, so that's when I realized that nursing was not just a job. It was it was a call to do the best you can when you're advocating for people. So yeah, I don't really take like no, I don't want to like to be the person that bucks the system, but I'll push it, especially for
Yeah.
humans, because like at the end of the day, systems are built, but they could be changed. And literally later on that night, when they were going through like, because we have like these nursing like huddles before, people start shifts, and so it changes shift. There was a huddle, and the same rule that they told me to abide by was taken off the board. So somebody has to be willing to say that this is not okay for this situation.
Yes. Awesome. Well, I'm sure that that patient appreciated the work behind that you did behind the scenes, right? And they may not know, but
Yeah,
they know they
I'm
appreciate it.
sure, because he was so uncomfortable. But there's like, I think that marked so many different instances of like things like that.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
So take us to the moment that you decided to leave New Orleans. Like, what triggered that?
So in 2020, I was in the role of, I was a nurse, like director of a unit, and they gave me like, I was like really new at it, like, probably like I was a novice. I was like maybe 8, maybe 9 to 10 months in or whatnot. But I was also juggling. I was like, I had the desire to go back to school. So it was like something, when I took both things on and I got the failing unit, I was giving a lot of my time to the unit. I was going in on weekends. I was a charge nurse. I was sometimes giving medications. There was no boundaries because we didn't have enough nurses and things like that. But once I started hiring more people and I saw that my school was failing and I was just not really making any headway, I was like, you know what? Now that I have got this unit to a place that we're ranking in awards, I need to pass this down. I feel like I had done my work and it wasn't going to be worth the sacrifice of what I really wanted to do long term. And that was to do, actually provide care, be a provider. So that's when I had to make a tough decision. I was like, and financially in working in leadership, it wasn't really sustainable for me and my daughter. And because I couldn't, do any extra jobs or things like that because the unit was really taking a lot of my time.
Sure.
So that's when I was like, okay, maybe I'll go travel, this and that or whatever. And so I was setting things up. I was actually supposed to go to DC. And then the whole COVID thing happened and no one wants to go to New York. It was that's the way you don't go. Okay. That was where they saw truckloads of bodies, this and that. And I was like, oh, I'm going to New York.
Oh, wow.
And I did. I actually landed in Harlem and it was a great shift from, leaving leadership and coming under this leadership in Harlem. It was something different, but that's for another story. But
we'll have to get to that other part of that story at some point here.
yeah, but it wasn't so by the time I got in there, it was it wasn't so bad. And there was a lot of different help there, the government and nurses. And so it wasn't bad. And it was supposed to be for a few months. And I, ended up staying for maybe 9 months to a year. But yeah, I wanted to do something different. And I needed to definitely make a financial change. And it was hard at the time, being that my daughter was in high school. But honestly, working alongside some of the women who are from all different parts of the world, African women, women from the Caribbean and things like that. And they had the same story. They left families behind because they were doing things on the front end so they could support their families on the back end. And I was like, wow, to have been aligned with these women during that critical part of my life I don't think it was accidental because, I left the South. It was very family oriented,
Right.
And the traditional family. Right.
Right.
And then to see that there were women who were doing the same thing, making these sacrifices for their families in the long run.
Yeah, that had to be definitely heavy on the heart and a cost associated with that. So what did it cost you emotionally to leave your daughter during those high school years?
Oh, I felt guilty. I felt guilty a lot. I was just I should be the one picking her up from school and this and that. And thank God, my ex-husband, her dad and I, we co-parent really, we have a really great relationship. And he was like, hey, this is a great opportunity for you. She's fine. And he was very supportive. Even my mom, some weekends she would like stay at my house and, have Gabby there. And I would go home like every like 2 to 3 weeks just to reconnect. But, it's not the same as like waking up, making breakfast and stuff.
Yeah, I
So yeah,
bet. So did you ever question whether that sacrifice was worth it or not?
absolutely. Every day I questioned it. But in the midst of that, I was like, I had set certain goals, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna buy a nice duplex uptown. I set certain goals that I was like accomplishing for like, our future. It wasn't just like, hey, I'm working, making money. No, I was like doing stuff like planting seeds. And so that I was like, that kind of helped balance things with the emotion and what I was objectively trying to do in the long run. And, hence now, like, that same duplex is, you know, paying its mortgage and helping pay my rent. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like,
Yeah.
so, you know, I feel that if I would have allowed my emotions to drive me, I probably would have missed out on an
Sure.
opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So single mothers, I want to talk to you right now, right? Um, you're listening to a single mother who made a difficult decision. And so I want you to stay tuned and stay attached to her story, her journey, and the decisions that she had to make, right? And I know it's never going to be easy, right? In life, it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it in the long run. And what you're hearing from her is definitely is worth it. So stay tuned. We're going to talk. We're going to go a little bit deeper here, right? Because I know you're facing these challenges and these difficult decisions, and I want you to learn from Dr. Ďalia and see how she did it, so that you can have the courage and the confidence that you too can. Right. So, what did this season teach you about leadership that comfort never could?
Um, there's not a lot of real growth in comfort.
That part.
I mean, I always felt like, I would end up on the West Coast. Another comfort thing, right? Because, I went to high school on the West Coast. I went to college on the West Coast. It's like, oh, it'll be easy. I'll just go back to the comfort of California. But moving to New York was something I never ever imagined. So actually moving and making it in a way that I had to figure things out was like, yeah, girl, you could do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that
Wow.
I feel like you're never going to know how far you can go if you stay inside your box.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So, Dalia, what I'm hearing is this: the
Hmm.
decision was bold, but the discipline sustained you, right?
Oh yeah,
Because,
yeah.
yeah, because
You have to have the
making,
discipline.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I say yes. Discipline is like, I feel like you have to have the discipline for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, right. Because making that leap is one thing, living with the leap every single day, now that's leadership, right? So let's talk about New York. Let's talk about the stretch. Let's talk about who you had to become to survive that season, right? Now,
Yeah.
audience, here's where we go a little bit deeper, right? So I want you to take a moment, get yourself ready for going deeper as you start making your decisions in your life. So, Dalia, I'm gonna call you Dr. Young. Um, what did perseverance look like in New York on an ordinary, hard, difficult, cold day?
So full disclosure, I don't really consider me moving to New York until like I actually like moved and like moved my car and things like that. Because before I was traveling, right? But once I finished school and decided to like take a quote unquote real job in like a staff job at at a pretty big institution, one of the top institutions in America or whatever. I was like, oh wow, I'm gonna be working here. So I moved all my stuff and I took my car. So that was to me was like, okay, you're almost cutting the bridge off. Because before it was like, okay, I'm getting a temporary house or whatever. And my bridge was always connected back to my, my house in New Orleans because I was like, I can always retreat. But when I signed on to like, work, at this other, at this new place and take a staff role, it was like, wow, this is real. And to be, and it was in March and it was like, the height of the cold season. And I was just like, wow, I have to get up early. It's cold. I have to walk 2 blocks from my parking garage. I was just like, you know what? Life could be so easy for you. I'm telling you, like for 3 months before until summer came, because New York summers are great. But it was like constantly telling me like, hey, you can go home because you have a driveway at home. If you worked at a hospital in New Orleans, you could just, roll up, And also at the time I was just dealing with, had just dealt with grief because like my dad had passed away, like maybe he passed away in September of the year before I, moved and like made my final move. And it was just a lot of stressors. And I had to choose every day to tell those voices, no, we're doing this. And I did, but it also, it did bring a lot of like stress. And I ended up like, in the midst of that, like getting sick and like having to have surgery. It was a whirlwind, but fortunately, through that time, I was able to like, feel supported with the organization that I was with and heal and do all the things, but, and get back to work and stuff. But I learned that you have to choose every day. Like you literally have to choose every day if you're going to show up for yourself, for the choices that you've made. Are you going to allow the fact that, oh, it's cold today? And sometimes, like there's a lot of negative, like not even just like the voices you have to deal with, but like people are like, oh yeah, it's a bad day, it's bad, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like, you got to tune out the noise and just be like, okay, what am I here for? Yeah. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? I'm not a quitter. Yeah. And I just
basically had to say, I'm not going back into comfort. You could easily go there.
No, it's easy. Yeah. It's so easy. Yeah. Comfort is like, sorry, I have to get my charger. Yeah. Comfort is like literally down the street. It's right there. But how would I know the other part of the story?
Right.
I don't think I would settle I wouldn't be happy with knowing that the other side hadn't been tapped into.
Yeah. Awesome. I absolutely love this. So how did you stay connected during this time to your daughter while you were, building the future?
So this was the year that Gabby was doing like a lot of college tours and things like that. And so I dedicated like time to like, I scheduled time in advance to, be available for all of that. And she was doing a lot of like debutantes and stuff like, really involved in the New Orleans, cultural thing for like their last year. I was very present for all of that. I didn't miss anything. And like I was like, we were touring schools on the East Coast. And so that was good for me. Like we would drive to like, she got a full ride to like Villanova. So she came to New York for that, and we spent the weekend and things like that. And, so we stood connected, and I was always very transparent with her. I mean, when I bought the duplex uptown, I took her out of school. I took her with me to the bank to get the money, and I took her with me to the closing. I wanted her to see like these are the things that this is what's happening behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So me just being very transparent and upfront with her and sharing things with her. Sometimes she was just like, no, I'm happy you took that job, and things like that. So,
Yeah. So in
yeah.
essence, you were passing on generational wealth mindset to her.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Awesome. Absolutely love that. So what did you have to silence? Was it fear? Was it guilt? Was it outside opinions?
Outside opinions, I think I'd moved past that. I've always lived kind of like on my own kind of march. I don't really have FOMO, like I'm just like, So I think it was just my own personal fears of like, what I make it, or like what I have to like retreat back. And the guilt part, once I, started talking to Gabby a lot, because there was like a year and a half that I was actually able to stay in New Orleans while I was in grad school, and I was like working at a local place doing a contract there. And it was great, like we spent her 10th and 11th grade year together. And then I moved, and she was like, oh, she was bummed I would have to move again. And I just had to explain to her what was going on. And once she came on board and like she was understanding, even though I knew that she missed her mom, And another thing, she had her best friend, her mom is an anesthesiologist, and, she did the same thing. She like worked 1 week in Austin and would go home for a week. So she had a similar, so they were able to vibe off of that. So I was like, all right. And we kind of like, talked about things together. And they were, she was older, and she was like, no, don't feed into that. You know what you have to do. And so I had her as a mentor to kind of like help, push me along the way.
Okay. Outstanding. So how did becoming a nurse practitioner change the way you see yourself?
So it was a goal I set, I was like, okay, I want to be more on the provider side. And I set the goal, and I was able to finish on time, and it meant a lot to me. I think when you accomplish anything that you set for yourself, and just having more of the authority and like of like being a part of the actual plan of care, because that was the next step for me. So yeah, it was very important to finish that.
Awesome. So what's the difference between having credentials and having leadership presence?
I don't really feel that credentials translate leadership at all. I do feel like some of the best leaders I've been around, it's like they're called. I appreciate, from my perspective, I appreciate leaders that aren't afraid to roll up their sleeves, but more thing I really appreciate is that they are able to stand up for, what's right for, for the people that they're leading, so they have like a sense of humanity. The credentials are great. I feel like, there's a lot of, when I was in leadership, they sent me to a lot of leadership trainings and this and that. I was a young leader, but I think that I was such a fighter for people. And I wasn't afraid to disrupt systems for what was right. So I'm not saying that disruptors are the best leaders, not saying that, but I'm just saying that if something doesn't, if something isn't okay, I think that that's the fact, that's the reason why humans are there to question it, and we can question the system and we can come up with better solutions. It's not just that you're complaining, no, but there's different ways to do things and we can input in a productive way. So I don't think leadership and credentials really translate.
Transcend.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So you've given us why you made decisions that you made. You've given us a glimpse of the discipline that it takes. You've given us a personal side of yourself. Now we're going to simplify a little bit. Okay. We call
Mhm.
this segment Unplugged and Unfiltered, the Leadership 10, right?
Mhm.
10 questions, no scripts, no overthinking it. First thought, clear response. Let's get it. Are you
Okay,
ready?
let's go.
All right. All right. So this audience, as you know, is rapid fire. And doing rapid fire, I'm going to ask her some questions. And this is also an opportunity for you to step in and answer some of these questions as well. So here we go. Comfort or growth?
Oh, growth.
Fear or faith?
Faith.
Stability or risk?
Risk.
Okay. Logic or instinct?
Logic.
All right. Sacrifice now or regret later?
You could sacrifice now.
Yes, absolutely. So lead with heart or lead with authority?
Heart.
Ooh. All right.
Heart.
Um, pressure builds you or breaks you?
Builds.
Ooh. All right. Legacy or lifestyle?
Legacy.
Legacy all day. All right. Private victory or public applause? Applause.
Private victories.
Private victory. Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Go ahead there, Doc. Safe path or purpose path?
Purpose.
Ooh, purpose is always important, right? So,
Mhm.
what do women leaders need less of and more of?
It's a good question. I think women leaders need more connection with each other. I think support is and mentorship is huge. Um, and I think that we need less of competing.
Oh,
We all have stuff that we can contribute, but I think that competition is just a thief.
mhm.
So saying how this person did it versus that person, like who cares? I think that we
Yeah.
need to support each other. I think that we can learn a lot from each other. And
Yes.
yeah, I think just, forming communities and like bringing our knowledge together is like huge. All these different silos and this and that, it's like we're not all going to advance if, we're not working together. So I love when I see a bunch of women working together. It's beautiful.
Okay. All right.
There's
All
power
right.
in that.
There is definitely power in that. I agree with you. So, what should women stop apologizing for?
They should stop apologizing for their presence, what they bring. They should stop apologizing for imperfection. Um, I I think they should embrace the humanity of it and bring what they have to the table and say it and stand firm on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to fight through that a lot, and all this imposter syndrome, all this whatever. I'm like, you know what? At some point, I had to really just be like and settle in myself and say, you know what? You are enough. You whatever you bring to whatever you're gonna say and what you're bringing, you're gonna put your best foot forward. Say it and let it be that, and drop the mic.
Yes. Yes. Boom. I
That's it.
love it.
I think
I love
that it's something that seems so simple, right?
Yeah.
But we have like I was reading and I think it was Mom and Me, one of Maya Angelou's memoirs. And I always said this, right? Because like in my new role, I was like, oh, like presenting as a novice, I was like, oh, it was always something that was really like, it was like I wanted to be perfect. I had to like really prepare for it. And this was like every day in front of like a group of people. And then I was like always so impressed or just like I was like, wow, in awe with how loud how sometimes people could be so loud and wrong.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, that has to be a gift or something. Because I'm like the audacity. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, it takes me I said, I have to like feel confident in what I'm bringing because I know what I'm saying is the truth.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so it brings me back to I was reading and in the book she had also recognized, she's like how, like because I was like, damn, is it just me? But she was like, how could they be so loud and wrong? How could
Right.
they stand 10 toes down and be like, yeah, as a matter of fact? And I'm like, actually, you're wrong, but it takes us to have to like build so much, layers of like information and confidence to like really show up. But then at some point I was like, you know what? I'm showing up with what I know and this is what it is. And once I started feeling settled in that, it actually like calmed things down and I was just flowing in my own groove.
Okay.
So I think that was a whole like perfectionism thing. So we don't have to be perfect. And sometimes I still fight through that, but just be present and give what you give with like this is what I am, this is what I have. And you know I mean we
Yes.
already practice in excellence, I feel like a lot of us. So if just stand 10 toes down on that.
Okay. A couple more questions on in our rapid fire segment, and then I'm going to get
Mhm.
back to the questions that I sent you. So, calling or career, what drives you?
Oh, I think it has to be a calling.
Calling. Okay. Um, faith strengthens leadership. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes. And last question here is, who are you accountable to when no one's watching?
Myself.
Oh, okay. All right. Love it. Um, okay. So, what we've done, audience, is go from decision to discipline. Now we're going to go from discipline to destiny, right? So, what strikes me is this: discipline doesn't just build careers, it builds capacity. And now you're standing in something you once only imagined, right? You imagine being a nurse practitioner. I don't know if you imagine living in New York, but well, at some point you have to imagine that part, but you're a nurse, you imagine where you are in life today, right? So let's shift from who you had to fight to become to who you are right now,
Mm.
right? Because
Hmm.
leadership isn't as about surviving the storm, it's about understanding what the storm produced in you. Okay. So now that you're walking in what you once prayed for,
Hmm.
what does success feel like?
You know, it feels like it feels peaceful. So once you feel like, I mean, once I had gotten through like the years of studying, going to school, and even, getting my daughter together to get to college. So now that I'm actually like living in, you know, what I actually want, like what I envision for myself. And it feels like, it's a sense of peace. And which lets me know that, okay, I'm in the right place. Cause I feel like, and I've always been trying to get here, been trying to get there. And so actually settling here and being in the place and not trying to get there takes a lot of, heaviness off.
Sure.
So sitting in that and, and actually being present in it is huge because like even in school, I worked like, sometimes 36, 48 hours full time when I was in graduate school. So I was like here and here and here, but now I'm like, okay, I can actually be a provider. And, I really like what I do.
Right.
So, I'm like, oh, well, maybe, I mean, I'm taking up Spanish and, I want to like, read like a novel a week, like I'm just like, life is good.
Yeah, that is awesome, and it shows in you. It
Yeah.
exudes out of you as well. And I've been um, uh, happy that I've been on the outside looking in at your journey along the way, right? And I've seen the matriculation and the maturation of your process. So it's exciting to see you happy with those decisions that you made, right?
Yeah.
So, what did the sacrifice actually produce in you?
Mm. I think the sacrifice to me produce it gave me like a certain level of strength and calmness to deal with like stressful situations. Like nothing really seems to be so like super stressful. Even like emergent situations, I'm like, you know what? Let's take a minute and let's go through this. We're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think the level of resilience is just mind-boggling. Like I can remember sitting next to people in school, and no one knew that the night before I'd gotten off from working because I worked like right outside of Philly,
Hmm.
and the closest airport was in Newark, New Jersey. So I would have to drive like maybe an hour and a half and catch the flight at 6 a.m. to get to class at 9 o'clock or whatever. And that's after getting off because it was like really hard work and I would like chart to the T. And I would get off at 10 and maybe get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to like get to the airport to hurry up and get in this flight and just be present in class. I never
Wow.
told anyone sitting next to me all what I had to do. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Because sometimes I feel like talking about things a lot that are just kind of, talking about things is good. But
Hmm.
marinating on like what's going on and like feeling sorry for yourself is not going to get us anywhere.
Right.
So it's like, okay, this is a season. I always looked at things like, okay, this is only a season. I'm not doing this forever. And like, what am I trying to accomplish in here? And so
Yeah.
those are the things that help me get through tough situations. And so I kind of look at those things. I'm like, damn, you made the sacrifices. You went through a lot of things that some people may not have been able to deal with. So what you're dealing with right now, you better look at your track record.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Okay.
think it's really increased my level of like, it's like, yeah, it's not a big deal. You could deal
Yeah.
with it. Like, yeah.
Yes. Awesome. So what would you say, well, not what would you say, what did your daughter say about you, about this season in your life and her experience through this?
So I we don't really talk directly about, this or that, or, I think that's how, she's still like a, young, older teen, like, she's like 19.
Yeah.
But I can tell when she says, like, because my mom said, and she's talking to other people, and my mom would never,
Yeah.
and I, immediately like smiling or whatever. Just recently, she was going for an organization, and she was like, "Yeah, I had to write about someone," and she was like, "I wrote about you," and I was like, "Oh, okay, tell me about it, girl." And she was like, "Not right now," but I was like, I think that is, for me, the transparency, or just showing her different things, like,
Yeah.
even like leaving, leaving a house that was, me and, in our marriage was just, it just wasn't okay, and like choosing to be happier by myself. And when I would never forget, like, I was like really hush hush about me moving out. And the first thing she ran and told my mom. She was like, "Yeah, me and my mom moved to an apartment, and my mom is so happy," you know? And for a child to like see the difference is something. And then like, her living through, like, I was in a very abusive relationship, and it took me a long time to get out of that. But having the resilience to leave that and move on, and recreate myself throughout all of these different seasons and processes, and her to see that, my main thing was for her to always see that you're not stuck.
Yeah.
You can actually, make changes if you're not happy. And just, don't, I mean, always bet on yourself,
Yeah.
like, go 10
Yes.
toes down on you. And so we may not talk about it, but
But you
I'm,
see it, or you
yes,
see it and hear it in her.
yes, I even see it, and I can see in her mannerisms. I was like, okay, yeah, so definitely.
Well, that is awesome. So, what I heard is not only are you passing on generational wealth mindset, you're also passing on personal wealth mindset, meaning bet on yourself, believe in you, know that you can get through difficult things and moments in life, right?
Yeah, you can do hard things. Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
So let's talk directly to single mothers now, right? So
Mhm.
what do single mothers need to understand about pursuing bold dreams? Because your dream was bold.
It was. It didn't
Yes.
seem like that at the time, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what do they need to understand about pursuing bold dreams?
That it's not gonna be easy, but it's it's worth it. I think it's important to align yourself with, or find your support, even if it's one or two people,
Mhm.
and just someone to encourage you along the way. I always remember, like, running marathons, or there's always people, like, you don't know, even, that are just like cheering you on. And life is really a marathon. There are highs and lows, and I, at some point, I became so jaded. I was like, oh, I can do this on my own, this and that, or whatever. But you really do need a solid people, like, that are actually for you, and that you can like vent to on a bad day, that isn't going to discourage you. I will never forget. I was having such, I was like, oh, this is a tough season in school, and I'm traveling. And I was like, maybe I'll just stop going to school, and I will, just continue to travel. And then, like, after all of this is, traveling has like kind of like worn out, and I can just work when things are just normal. And I had two friends. One friend was like, oh, yeah, maybe this just isn't your season to. Yeah, so you got to watch your friends too.
Right.
And I'm not saying anything about the friend because, maybe that was her capacity.
Sure.
Okay. But then I had another friend was like, what are you talking about? Just do both. Immediately, he was just like, why would you consider doing one? Just do both. And I had to realize that this person was doing so many different things, killing life, and this person was settling. So you got to understand where people are, and you got to put them where they are. And honestly, it may seem cold, but it's the truth. I think we should be objective. I think we should, we should not fool ourselves to say, oh yeah, well, that's what my friend said. But what is your friend doing?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that friend gave me that advice, and I was like, what if I would have taken that advice?
Yeah.
That could have like changed my trajectory,
Yes.
But this one friend was like, no, you just need to do both. You can do both. And that's period. That's it. Like you're creating something different.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, something clicked in my brain. I was like, yeah, why was I thinking that?
Right.
So
yeah.
And
we all need those friends who are going to help us see what the other side could look like.
Exactly. And sometimes because they've gone there already. Yes. Like she can tell me that because she had never taken that route. It was easy for her to tell me just to quit.
Right. Yes.
So,
and I like that you had friends on both sides that then you can look at both of them and then say, what is this person doing or living into? And what is this person doing and living into? Right. And then make that decision. I need to make these bold decisions right now because the sacrifice is going to be worth it.
It's like like people can give you information, but it's like, where is it coming from? Like what knowledge bank? So it's like when I'm getting information from this level, what I'm saying, of living and knowledge is like, okay, it's different than, someone who's like living in comfort.
Yes, absolutely. So I have one final question for you. And this is a personal question.
Okay.
Okay. So if you wrote that book that I keep telling you that you need to write, what would the message be?
The message. Oh my God, there would be so many messages. My message would just be, don't quit, don't give up. I mean, if that's something you want to do, it's just resilient. Like resilience is it. My biggest thing was that being sick and tired of the job that I had at the time. And I took a day off and I was like, I need to go back to school. And I literally was like, oh, something told me in my spirit to go to LSU or whatever. And I had been rejected 3 times because I had failed this research class twice. And so this was going to be the next attempt, I demanded that I speak with someone and this and that. And I was like, okay, I'm just going through the rigmarole again. And turns out that was actually my time when they said yes.
Wow.
Yeah, they said yes. And it wasn't just for like a master's program. It was like for my doctorate program. And even through that, I had faced other little challenges and dilemmas, but I never gave up, and that's when my faith in, God comes in. And he always says that if I gave it to you, I'm gonna see you through it.
Yes. Yes. This is where I can see the audience cheering you on right here. I can
Yeah.
see them in there, wherever they're watching from tonight. I can see them cheering you on with this part, because they probably see themselves in your journey, right?
Yeah.
And if they make those difficult, bold decisions, what you just said is God will stand behind you. He'll be the wind beneath your wings
Oh
to
my
help you fly,
God.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So through it all, like, yeah, he's definitely my guide, my strength. And
Awesome.
he
Awesome.
renews you every day. So
I
that's
love it. I love it. I love it. I loved your story. I knew some of it, but now our audience gets got to hear your story, your journey, and why you are a valuable guest on my birthday show.
oh, happy birthday.
So, I totally appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to come on the show and be here to celebrate my birthday today. Um, but no, seriously, I really appreciate you. I value you, and hope our audience enjoyed your responses as well. Right. And before we go, let me just kind of recap some of the things that I heard, and hopefully our audience heard the exact same thing. And I call this part of the show is sacrifice and legacy. Right. So 𝗟𝗟's story reminds us of some powerful things. Right. Leadership is not loud. It's not always visible, and it's rarely convenient. See, sometimes leadership looks like late nights in a new city. Sometimes it looks like tears no one sees. Sometimes it looks like choosing long-term legacy over short-term comfort, right? You made a decision that cost you something, but it also built something. And that's the lesson that I want our audience to pick up on tonight. See, leadership is not about avoiding sacrifice. It's about making sure the sacrifice serves purpose. And you said it in one of your rapid fire answers. Purpose was important to you, right? So to everyone listening, if the dream requires growth, if the growth requires courage, and if the courage requires sacrifice, make sure it's building legacy. This is 𝗟𝗃 Unplugged, where leadership is the lesson and growth is always the assignment. Now, audience, you know that I always have a worksheet, so I will put that in the comments for you to download that worksheet and do the work on this one. This worksheet is going to make you dig deep, just like Dr. 𝗟𝗃 did here tonight for us, digging deep, telling us her story and her journey and the how and why she did things. That worksheet is going to help you make those decisions for your life as well. So download that. Next week, Dr. Nicole Rankin will be our guest on the show. So make sure you get ready to tune in for that. With that said, Dr. 𝗟𝗃, again, thank you
No,
for coming.
thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. It's always a good conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I am going to end the show tonight, audience. Download the worksheet. Everything is in the comments. If you have any further questions, comments, or whatever, put those in the chat, and I'll definitely respond to those. So thank you guys, and have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.